Well, the BEPS environment really raises three main types of tax risk. The first is enforcement risk. Tax administrations are taking much more aggressive positions around the world, raising a number of issues that have not necessarily been raised in the past, and corporations need to understand that and be prepared for those types of discussions. The second risk is really the risk of changes to the tax law. And these we'll see over the next few years as recommendations come out of the OECD and as countries change their laws to address the kinds of concerns that BEPS is intended to address. The third set of risks is really reputational risks. And this is important primarily for brands that are consumer-facing or companies that do a lot of business with governments, where that reputation is really a core part of the value that they provide.
Imagine, if you will, the rest of the world acts on the OECD's recommendations that, for example, our major trading partners and major countries in the G20 and the OECD have enacted either all of or in large part of what the OECD recommends. You may find that Congress finds it to be, in that case, much easier or even necessary to adopt BEPS for a couple of reasons, I suppose. One of which is if multinationals find that the environment that they're dealing in is an environment where the BEPS rules are in place virtually everywhere else, they may find it non-offensive if Congress simply acts and just implements the BEPS proposals. Furthermore, you might even find a scenario under which they're asking Congress to enact them, if for no other reason than to provide consistency in terms of rules around the world as it relates to these cross-border transactions. And finally, if the U.S. finds that as the last holdout on BEPS, that they are really the loser in terms of tax planning, that other jurisdictions, companies are using the U.S. to extract income out of the U.S., then ultimately the U.S. may be forced to act on BEPS as well.
The OECD is putting out a lot of proposals that we're expecting to be finalized relatively soon that really are going to significantly change the transfer pricing documentation process. The primary change that they're making has to do with what they call transparency, which means full disclosure to all tax authorities around the world of information relevant to transfer pricing everywhere globally. Historically, each country has received information just about the transfer pricing that affects the entity in its country and not had the big picture. So the OECD is introducing new requirements that include a master file that would be provided to all tax authorities around the world, summarizing the overview of how their operations are structured and what the key value drivers are in their business, as well as information about where they are recording income and where they are paying taxes globally, not just in the local countries.